You won't believe what Larry Fink might have just admitted on the national news. And at the same time, two multi-trillion-dollar economies just made some huge Bitcoin law changes this week. But this story really gets fascinating because when you have a listen to what Larry Fink said, he was asked about the leverage in one of these countries. And as you're watching this, I want you to ask yourself, why did he instantly pivot the question to Bitcoin? So let's watch this. This was on CNBC. Super interesting stuff. I'm going full tinfoil hat on you guys today. Let's check it out.
Can I ask you about leverage? Every morning we come in here, we check the Kospi, which was up 9% swings. The South Korean president said the market there she thinks is quite unstable. A lot of it's leveraged ETFs and two big names.
Which we don't really do.
Right. Do you worry about that, though? Is it a global risk factor?
No, I really don't worry about... There's not that much leverage in this system compared to 2008, 2009. Now, maybe the Korean market has that embedded leverage in it. There is no question, as I said it in earlier times when I was here, I was always worried about the leverage in Bitcoin and crypto. There was too much leverage players in it. That's why we had the washout, and I think there's more stability at these levels here. But no, we don't see that much implicit leverage. For the scale of the capital markets today, the leverage is not as large. I mean, that doesn't mean there's not pockets. But no, as I said in my prepared remarks this morning, I'm very bullish on the markets over the next 12 months. I think the technological revolution is going to power better margins for more companies. I mean, think about BlackRock. We've raised our margins increased by 260 basis points over the last 12 months. A lot of it is using more and more technology.
All right, guys. So for you guys that maybe aren't aware, Kospi is the Korean, it's like the Korean S&P 500. And there was a few interesting news coming out of Korea, South Korea, and of course, Japan. And as I've been mentioning, and it was actually hit on in that clip, what we're watching right now happen in the Asian markets are super interesting. Though Larry Fink very clearly said he's not worried about the leverage happening in Korea. Obviously, they didn't talk about Japan because anyone that knows anything knows that Japan is, in fact, intertwined with all of the global markets. But anyways, before I get into the news coming out of South Korea and Japan that are Bitcoin related, let's talk about this clip. There's two things that I take from this clip. One is obviously he's like, I'm bullish at these prices, which is, you know, I mean, if you know anything in Bitcoin, it's like we're basically at the bottom of a bear market. So yes, good prices. But the interesting part was he was asked a question about leverage in the Korean markets and whether he thought that was going to be a contagion for the rest of the markets. And he's like, no, I'm not really worried about leverage. Like our leverage now in the system isn't as bad as 08. When, of course, there was the great financial crisis, but very instantly pivoted the question to Bitcoin and talked about Bitcoin leverage. And what have we been talking about on this show for months at this point, particularly since the 10/10 November crash caused by a, quote, Binance glitch here that basically started the beginning, or rather, I wouldn't say started, but it was the, I would say, final catalyst to get us into the bear market action we are in right now. It wiped out all of the leverage traders. And Larry Fink has been saying this for months at this point. He's like, look, I like Bitcoin, but there's too much leverage in the system. And further, too much leverage on offshore exchanges. And what are we seeing happening right now? Well, in the past couple of months, all the leverage traders in Bitcoin have been completely wiped out. This is why I constantly keep bringing you up the long and shorts and what's going on in derivatives, because we're seeing right now that it's not spot Bitcoin that is driving the price of Bitcoin. It is the ETFs. And then, of course, it is the leverage in Bitcoin. It's all the leverage traders, which historically, as we all know, the price of Bitcoin is set on the fringes. It's all the leverage traders. The majority of Bitcoin is in self-custody, but it's about maybe being generous, 4 million Bitcoin that are on exchanges and being traded because of all of the traders and all of the leverage and people trying to make a quick buck. That is actually essentially moving the Bitcoin price. Most of us already are pricing our Bitcoin at what, like infinity dollars per sats or $10 million per Bitcoin. But the leverage traders, the degenerate traders on the exchanges are the ones that are fluctuating the Bitcoin price. And what did Larry Fink just say? He's like, I'm actually feeling very bullish right now because all the leverage got wiped out of the system. And you're like, wait, hold on. I know I'm connecting too many dots here at sometimes on this show, but it almost seemed like he just admitted this, like, yeah, we've been leverage hunting. We wanted to clear out all the leverage in the system so that we coming now, all the banks coming off Wall Street, they can be the ones that are in control. And it is something I've been saying on this show for a while now. It's like, it was one of my offhand comment conspiracy theories on this show. I'm like, what if what we're seeing right now is Wall Street trying to come into Bitcoin, wipe out all the leverage, wipe out all the Bitcoin native companies so that they can, in fact, become the de facto companies that not only custody Bitcoin, but handle all of the leverage trading and, of course, handle the majority of the flows, the inflows coming in, the capital coming into Bitcoin. And now here we have Larry Fink essentially saying, like, hey, all the leverage has been wiped out. We're at a very good place right now. I'm extremely bullish on the markets for the next 12 months. I'm listening to this and I'm like, wait, why were you asked about Korea and now you're talking about wiping out the leverage in Bitcoin? It is almost like they are planning this to happen, or rather they wanted this to happen. And as we've seen from the institutions, they are obviously extremely bullish on Bitcoin. Almost every big bank and asset manager has either launched a Bitcoin product or talked about embracing Bitcoin. And here we are at the bottom of a bear market. We've seen a lot of Bitcoin products launch. We've seen most of the leverage be wiped out. Obviously, there's still leverage in the system because of a lot of degenerate traders. As Larry Fink said, you know, there's some pockets of leverage in the system, but the majority of it is, one, offshore exchanges, and two, just out of the market in general. They basically just took everyone's money. So I found it super interesting here that we're hearing Larry Fink talk about Bitcoin leverage when he's asked about Korean market leverage, Korean stock market leverage here. Now, to add another wrinkle into this story, we did get two updates coming out of the Asian market surrounding Bitcoin in particular. The first one is this: South Korea to integrate crypto into state asset management framework. So looking at this, it looks like South Korea is now going to, you know, they basically are changing their laws so that they can, one, it seems, allow spot Bitcoin ETF to proliferate on their stock markets. And two, just by the very name of this, it sounds like they might be moving towards a strategic Bitcoin reserve. So let me read the blurb for you guys here. South Korea is set to incorporate cryptocurrency into its state asset management framework. This development marks a significant shift in the country's regulatory landscape, recognizing digital assets as legitimate instruments for national fiscal management. Does that not sound like a strategic Bitcoin reserve? Anyways, the move is part of a broader strategy under the government's Digital Asset Basic Act, aiming to streamline the integration of virtual assets into public sector financial operations. This policy change follows the lifting of a long-standing ban on corporate crypto holdings earlier this year, allowing companies to allocate a portion of their capital to major cryptocurrencies. So this is hitting two things that we've seen, or two themes and stories and plot lines in Bitcoin. One, strategic Bitcoin reserves. Two, Bitcoin treasuries. So it looks like South Korea has essentially now gone down the path where they're changing their laws to be like, well, one, we're going to make sure that our government is able to build a strategic Bitcoin reserve. Two, we're going to allow companies to hold Bitcoin on their balance sheet or a Bitcoin treasury. And at the same time, this will also allow them to allow spot Bitcoin ETFs to trade on the KOSPI, which is also, again, as we know, Larry Fink is super bullish on Bitcoin because the Bitcoin IBIT ETF is their best performing ETF ever. So all of these things, yes, maybe I'm connecting dots that aren't there, but it is all super interesting. We're in the bear market. We're seeing the leverage get completely wiped out of the market. We're seeing all the degenerate traders get wiped out and, you know, losing their shirts. Now we're on the verge of essentially, from what we know, in the next couple of days, potentially getting the Clarity Act past the finish line. And now we're seeing countries around the world essentially talk about, hey, we actually want to have not only a Bitcoin reserve for our country, but we also want favorable laws around digital assets in our country, which is what I've been saying I think it was this week and part of last week. It's like, if the U.S. fumbles this Clarity Act or this Bitcoin superpower of the world, like they've been doing, dragging their feet, another country is going to do this with or without us. Now, if we do get the Clarity Act through, and it is favorable laws around digital assets, then everyone's going to essentially follow our framework. Now, to add on top of this, we also got news coming out of Japan that is very similar. Look at what Japan just did. And we all know Japan is having trouble with their economy. You know, they're raising interest rates. They are seemingly on the verge of dropping U.S. treasuries. They are trying to protect the Japanese yen because it is struggling against the dollar. And as anyone that knows anything about the Bank of Japan, they've basically been the venture capital central bank around the world. And so if the debt that or the payments that people need to make to the Bank of Japan increase because of interest rates, well, there goes all the free money. There goes all the easy money. And look at what they're doing at the same time. Japan's landmark vote reclassifies Bitcoin and crypto as financial assets. Japan's parliament passed an amendment on Wednesday that reclassifies cryptocurrency as, quote, a financial asset, a shift that pulls Bitcoin and other digital assets out of the country's payments regime and into the framework that governs stocks, bonds, and investment trusts. This change strips crypto of its prior status under the Payment Service Act, where regulators treated it as a means of settlement, and folds it into the Financial Instruments and Exchange Act, the same statute that oversees traditional securities. The amendment moves Bitcoin and other crypto under a single investor protection standard. NHK reports that change takes effect within a year, starting 2027. So you're seeing, what are we seeing? Putting all of this stuff together. One, the Larry Fink, he gets asked about South Korea, and the leverage in the system. As I've been covering on the show, the traders and I would say just the retail sentiment coming out of South Korea, as we know, hey, the Koreans love to gamble. They love stock markets. I think they all piled into the SpaceX IPO. They have been longtime fans of Bitcoin. And now we're seeing, hey, they just changed their laws to essentially allow more companies and even the state level to acquire Bitcoin at the very same time that it looks like they're having a big trouble in their stock market. So it looks like they are building the exit route, right? Now, hey, under our new laws, Bitcoin is totally kosher. You can save in Bitcoin. We're not going to stop you to save in Bitcoin. At the same time that their prime minister is essentially doing public PR saying, hey, we have a lot of leverage in the system. There's some problems here. And then on the very same time, they're like, oh, wait, we just found the exit valve into Bitcoin. Then we have Larry Fink basically saying, yeah, we wiped out all the leverage in Bitcoin. It's super chill. I love these prices right now. I'm super bullish on Bitcoin. And at the same time, Japan, that's been having troubles, they're basically in shambles right now. They also just changed the rules so that you can hold Bitcoin, so that Bitcoin is going to be traded. It almost seems as if everyone is looking at Bitcoin as the exit valve. They're like, oh, wait, we're really in trouble. We got to find a way for maybe our citizens to, at the very least, be allowed to go into this new asset. No longer are we going to stop them. All, again, on the verge of potentially the Clarity Act passing here, or at least getting past the finish line in the next couple of days. Yes, I'm not the biggest fan on regulations and, regulatory clarity, et cetera, but it is interesting that all of this is happening at the same time. As we watch the Asian markets for the past week or so stumble, they're losing, bunch of money. They're crashing right now. They're just rewriting the rules so that people can save in Bitcoin. So South Korea, Japan, almost officially on board, embracing Bitcoin at the very same time that their economies are having trouble. What have we been saying about Bitcoin forever? Bitcoin is the exit. Bitcoin is the safety boat. When you get in trouble, when you are looking at the general uncertainty in the global economy, where do you essentially look to when you have exhausted all your options. It is Bitcoin. And it looks like the South Korean government and the Japanese government are also seeing the same thing. Now, it is more, that's just the laws that are happening. That's just like the news coming out right now. But to me, Larry Fink just talking about the Bitcoin leverage, I'm like, this guy, dude, he nuked all the traders out there. So hopefully you haven't been trading, guys, because if you are, you're getting hunted by Larry Fink and co. Everyone on Wall Street is trying to take your coin. Right now is not the time to be using leverage in the system.
It's not only Wall Street, the president.
Yeah. You're counter trading Trump.
You're counter trading Trump. The craziest news that came out was the fact that Trump made a fortune off of the Bitcoin and broader crypto ecosystem, while everybody else got wrecked. Right, that was the thing that came out. That was the big breaking news. That was one of the reasons, the talking points that the Democrats have been using to try to stall the Clarity Act and whatnot, which I find hilarious. So it's like, you're not only counter trading Larry Fink, you're counter trading
the whole world at this point.
You're counter trading President Trump, aka Baron Trump,
aka the ones with the insider trading knowledge.
I wouldn't be surprised if Baron was the one sending out those Truth Social posts, man.
I mean, didn't Baron, like, I think he's like damn near almost a billionaire right now, and he's like still in college. That insider trading knowledge is top tier.
By the way, for the record, am I still voting for the repubs? 100%. 100%.
Stockholm syndrome.
100%. I mean, bro, what's the alternative? The alternative is an anti-crypto party. Like, I don't want that anti-Bitcoin party. Like, it is what it is in the United States. It's a two-party system. I suspect, with each presidential candidate, it will get better, but the long story short here is, don't trade. Like, this is what we've known as Bitcoiners for a long time. I've always told you guys, time in the market always beats timing the market. Don't trade. You'll get wrecked. You will end up, 99% of people, you will end up with less Bitcoin than you had before if you try to trade. Full stop. So, to add to Opti's point, and I'll give it back to him, is it's not only about counter trading Larry Fink. You're counter trading people that have a lot of insider information that you're not privy to. Now, we could talk about the morality of that and whatever. Ladies and gentlemen, this is how Wall Street has worked forever. This is how it's always been. Do you guys remember the whole GameStop shabacle? And then how they just paused trading, like Wall Street. And I remember the Warren Buffett quote, right? Like I have to look at it, but basically, like, it's like, look, like, the markets are designed to take money from the inpatient to the patient. This is another way of saying hodl, right? And then where did the hodl expression come from? I have to look it up, but it's hilarious because
drunk post.
It came out of a meme, which I literally have to like pull this up because it's absolutely hysterical, and it comes from like Bitcoin history. But basically, this was back in 2013. I typed that title twice because I knew it was wrong the first time, still wrong, whatever. Girlfriend's out at a bar, Bitcoin crashing. Why am I hodling? I'll tell you why. It's because I'm a bad trader, and I know I'm a bad trader. Yeah, you good traders can spot the highs and lows, pit, path, Piffy, Wong, Wing, Wong, just like that, and make $1 million bucks. Sure, no problem. Likewise, the weak hands are like, oh no, it's going down, I'm gonna sell, heh heh heh. And then they're like, oh God, I can't say that. With the smart traders who know what the F they're doing, buy back. But you know what? I'm not part of that group. When the traders buy back, I'm already part of the capital. So guess who you're cheating, day traders? Not me. There's a lot of wisdom in here, regardless of the status of his sobriety. You got to stay humble, stack sats. Like the numbers are brutal, right? It's like 9 out of 10 traders lose money. There's a lesson there. If you just stay humble, stacks. I've bought every top, I've bought every bottom, and I've bought everything in between. Time in the market beats timing the market. That's the most successful Bitcoiners I've ever met. Which is the people that they just hodled. So there's the lesson there. Pass it off to Opti. I want to get off my soapbox. We do have a guest coming on today. We have Mauricio from LEDN, the dear friend. You guys know Mauricio. You guys know LEDN's a fantastic platform. Tap into the wealth of your Bitcoin without having to sell it. They have proof of reserves. It's great. So I'm looking forward to having Mauricio on today's show. But Opti, what do you think about my wisdom? What do you think about that post, first of all?
I mean, legendary post. You know, I crash out too when I drink a bunch of whiskey. So I would have definitely made the same post there. But you know, while you were talking, it reminded me of when we got in Bitcoin around 2017. Which, if you weren't around then, it was the ICO boom. And every one of us, since we were new, we were green. We all essentially, most of us, I'm not going to say every single one of them, but most of us basically got called by, you know, the siren songs of shit coins. Because at that time, literally you could throw money, you could throw a dart on the dartboard and just throw your money at any other shitcoin, altcoin out there, and you would make money. And it was this very alluring call to every single one of us. Like, you get into Bitcoin, you get all these crazy gains. And then it was the fabled shitcoin cycle, altcoin cycle, and you could literally throw money at anything and you would make money. And since we were all new, we really didn't know how the game worked in terms of altcoins. We didn't know that that behind the scenes that they were all pump and dumps, that most of these coins had really huge creator, holdings. They basically gave themselves the majority of the coins. And then there were like coordinated groups where they would be like, okay, buy at this number, sell at this number. Like we didn't understand the game, right? And during the 2018 bear market, when we all basically became the hardcore Bitcoin only, cult members that we are today, we all had like a reckoning moment. We all had to come to terms with understanding what is actually happening in this space and how do things actually work. Because if you're just seeing stuff on social media, you think, this coin, it's got more utility, bro. It's got such a good website, bro. And then you realize that they're coordinated pump and dumps. Anyways, the reason I'm bringing all this up is because now we're starting to see that something similar might be happening with Wall Street, not necessarily with shitcoins, though. I didn't even bring it up today, but there was a good post essentially going around that I think it was JP Morgan, BlackRock, and Morgan Stanley. It was on, I believe it was Bloomberg or Wall Street Journal or something, but they're all going super hard on tokenization, which is making everyone think that maybe the Clarity Act is most likely going to pass. But anyways, reason I bring all this up is because when you don't really understand the mechanics going on behind the scenes, then you can get caught up in the fervor of what's going on in the markets. And we learned our lesson in 2017, 2018 with the altcoin cycle. Now, altcoins, everyone knows, without a doubt, it's like, hey, you're gambling. There's nothing there. By all means, if you want to gamble, go for it. But if you're buying into something for, quote, utility and long-term that isn't Bitcoin, you're going to get fleeced. This is essentially the same thing that we're seeing now. If you don't know how to trade, if you think you're just going to buy Bitcoin, go 100x leverage, and you're going to, run off with generational wealth, and you're going to be a millionaire, and you're going to be able to retire. If you don't know what these tools are, if you don't know how to manage your risk with leverage, if you've never traded before, you probably shouldn't be doing it, and you should just be buying Bitcoin, taking it into cold storage, wait, go live life, continue to buy Bitcoin. This is the safest way to do this. We are starting to see, hey, whether you like it or not, if you're just an average person, there is the sophistication of Wall Street is coming into Bitcoin, and you probably can't beat them. So you want to make sure you have more coins tomorrow than you do today. And probably the worst way for you to do that is by just going leverage long here, because look, Larry Fink basically said it. It's like, yeah, we're hunting the leverage and all the leverage is gone. And yes, there will be probably another cycle where once Clarity Act goes through, I'm sure we will start to see like on-chain exchanges offering leverage. And we're just going to go through a new cycle of people losing their coin because they're like, hey, look, I no longer have to do 100x leverage with the VPN on Binance. I could do this from Morgan Stanley. This is awesome. They wouldn't be doing something that's going to hurt me. Yes, they would. Yes, they would. I actually, another side story before we keep it moving. I was watching this documentary the other night. It was The Real Wolf of Wall Street. And the only reason I'm bringing it up, we all seen The Wolf of Wall Street, of course, but they did like The Real Wolf of Wall Street, where they were interviewing like a lot of people that were a part of Stratton Oakmont. And a lot, like you could see during it that they were like coping. At first they're like, look, we didn't really know, we didn't really want to know. And then after the fact they're like, yeah, you know, we would only go to like high net worth individuals. And then they like expose them in the like fine print, and it's like they were just going after anyone that really had no effing clue what they were doing. Guys, you know, history doesn't repeat, but it often rhymes. So look, just buy Bitcoin, take it into self-custody and just continue buying Bitcoin. It is not enough to just buy it once, unless you're already like a, you know, multimillionaire and you're like coming in and you're buying $10 million in Bitcoin today. Then you know, you're probably not the person we're talking to here. But for everyone else, just constantly buy Bitcoin, constantly take it off the exchange, secure your Bitcoin. This is the best way to go about this. Anyways, I am going to keep it moving because I just realized the time and I think Mauricio is about to pop in right now. So quick commercial break and we will be right back. Here's the part that nobody says out loud. Buying Bitcoin on an exchange and leaving it there isn't buying Bitcoin. It's buying an IOU. And the last decade has been a masterclass in what happens when those exchanges don't deliver on their promises.
Bitcoin Well is a self-custody Bitcoin platform. That means that when you buy Bitcoin, it goes straight to your self-custody Bitcoin wallet. You actually own it from the very first transaction. They're available both in the United States and Canada. Pricing is transparent, straightforward, and no nonsense. And if you're buying a larger amount of Bitcoin, Bitcoin Well Infinite gives you concierge-level support through a dedicated executive Bitcoin advisor, premium help for when it actually matters.
You can also stack a little extra through the referral and wishing well rewards. A nice bonus on top of the owning your own Bitcoin thing. So go to bitcoinwell.com/simply and sign up for the Bitcoin Well portal today and buy Bitcoin you actually own. Paper burns, paper floods, paper fades. If your seed phrase is written on paper, it's not really backed up. It's waiting to disappear. Stampseed's DIY kit lets you hammer your seed words directly into commercial grade titanium. Fireproof, crush-proof, waterproof, and permanent. Once your words are in the metal, they aren't going anywhere. Use code SIMPLY at stampseed.com for 15% off anything in the store. That's stampseed.com, code SIMPLY. All right, guys, before I get to the numbers, I got a paid spot by Rumble Wallet. Guys, you know what we're about. I'm beating this in your head. We are freedom of speech maxis, and we are freedom of money here. And Rumble Wallet's the best. There's all of you guys on Rumble right now watching us. We love Rumble. Guys, they're giving you $10 right now just to try the wallet. Go to Rumble.
And it's non-custodial.
I wasn't even getting there yet. All right, go to wallet.rumble.com. Use the promo code simply10, and they're going to give you $10 to use the wallet. And like Nico just said, the reason we love it is because it's non-custodial. You own the money that's in there. You own the Bitcoin that's in there. And of course, you could use it to pay your favorite content creators. Send them some sats if you appreciate what they're doing. Go to, again, wallet.rumble.com and use the promo code SIMPLY, and they are giving you free money to use it today. All right, guys. Anyway, current Bitcoin price is $64,150. Wait. The current price of Bitcoin is $64,150. The discount from all-time high is 49.2. The market cap is currently 1.29 trillion, a long ways away from the $2 trillion market cap. And the current block height is 958,306. Okay. So I saw this clip that TFTC posted. It was coming from Natalie Brunell's Coin Stories. It's this, I really am not familiar with this guy, Julian Linger, but he works at Relay. The reason I like this is because we're currently living through this moment right now, as we've seen with the AI hype, that everyone just chases the new shiny thing. And if you talk to people, a lot of times when they talk about Bitcoin, they're like, dude, I missed out on all the gains. I've been seeing people on Twitter going like, if I put $1,000 today and Bitcoin goes to like, you know, all-time high or 200K, like I'm only going to get a 2X. That's only $2,000. It's like, guys, I'm convinced the fun isn't over in Bitcoin. I actually just tweeted earlier. I was kind of hopium posting this morning. I said 2017 bull run rerun just started. So we're bull posting on Twitter now. But let's watch this clip and we'll chat about it for a little bit.
They think, that has done 100x, so it's too late. I'm too late. They don't put in the real. I think Mike Saylor said this many times. You need to put in at least 100 hours, and most people don't have or don't want to invest these 100 hours to really understand. When they do, they end up as, for example, Relay clients, and then have $100 weekly savings plan. They do it for a few years. No one has ever lost money that has done a savings plan for 4 years, but many don't believe that this long-term will again go up. They feel like it's over now, and they don't put in the time to think about it. And it just doesn't move too much. Like when it's going to move again towards 100K and new all-time high, they will come again. Yes. We've seen this before, but unfortunately, I feel like really people go where the asset is really moving, what's the hot thing that is also in the press and the media, and the neighbor is doing it, so I'm going to do it. And currently, this is all but Bitcoin. It's all these other assets, which is that gold was one example, is now also much quieter.
So shout out to Natalie. Always Natalie's
dude. Everyone forgot
Natalie's
about Bitcoin.
Podcast is incredible. Go check out Coin Stories. But yeah, I mean, so it just sounds exactly what we were just talking about in the beginning, like verbatim,
exactly.
like literally what we were saying, right? About staying humble, dollar cost averaging a little bit every single day. Everyone gets what, guys, this movie has played out, like, at least in my time in Bitcoin, I've seen this movie play out a couple times already. And the fact that people are so disillusioned, the fact that people are so bored, this happens every single bear market cycle. It's like human psychology never fails. It's always the same pattern. It's always the same crash out. It's always the same capitulation type of mentality. And this is exactly what's playing out today. This time is absolutely no different. So, you know, lots of wisdom there. From Julian, that's his name, right? Yeah. Did I get it right? And yeah, if my memory serves me correct, I think he's the founder and CEO of Relay. Yeah. So, yeah, man. I mean, wisdom there. We were saying it in the beginning. I think that hodl, meme at this point, it's become a meme. There's so much wisdom in there, and if you guys were to take something away from today's episode, is, again, the most successful people in Bitcoin that I've met are people that have just stayed humble, stack sats, don't trade. And again, there's awesome. There's also platforms. There's awesome platforms like LEDN, for example, that again, they allow you to tap into the wealth of your Bitcoin without having to sell it. You just have to be responsible in terms of how you use these tools. So, you know, you don't want to end up with less Bitcoin than the day before. So just don't trade. Stay humble. Utilize the tools that we advocate for on Simply Bitcoin. Take self-custody of the Bitcoin. It's so important for you guys to succeed in this Bitcoin work. Ultimately, guys, this is what I want you to take away. Everyone wants your Bitcoin. Like Opti just did an entire bit about Larry Fink, and I did my entire bit about the president of the United States. Everyone got wrecked, and then the president of the United States made a fortune, right? you could talk about the morality of that. Personally, I'm a huge fan of Trump. I like Trump. I know Opti's like, Nico, you're a magatard. I think he's done.
I mean, I think he's the funniest president ever.
I think he's done wonders for the industry. You know, getting Ross Ulbricht out of prison. I think Elon Musk said it best, right? Like, you know, he's a man of his time, right? He comes from that time. You know, this is like he had his. I mean, you could say his peak is right now, but he had, you know.
At 80 years old,
the guy's been peaking his entire life, but this is someone who
wait. Men age like wine. I agree.
I never said that. Women do too. You know, I think you know, no one's better than their incentives, and the way that you could just beat all of this is just stay humble, stack sats.
You know what I kind of took from this? Obviously, like I set it up and I agree with Nico. But while I heard it the second time right now while I was live, it reminds me of the classic meme in Bitcoin where, like, you know, we all kind of base everything around the 4-year cycle, whether it's real or not. No. And we used to say for a long time in Bitcoin that you are essentially looked at from your friends and family like an idiot for 3 years, and then really in reality you have like, you know, 12 weeks or something like that where you're like a genius when Bitcoin hits all-time high and it rips. That's kind of what I was hearing in that clip when I heard it the second time, because it's like right now we're at that part in the bear market or the cycle where everyone is ignoring Bitcoin. It's like Bitcoin died, it's 50% off. It's like you're an idiot if you didn't sell the, you know, all-time high and you held it all the way down. Like I told you, I can hear JJ and Rumble, like, I told you to sell at 115. You're an idiot. You should have listened to me. And now you're 40-50% down on your holdings. And look at us. We're dumb, you know. We're the dumb Bitcoiners right now because it's a bear market and we're just stacking through the whole thing. We don't trade. We're just like, all right, cool. We got the all-time high. That felt cool. Now we're down 50%. We're still stacking. It is what it is. You know, I'm building my Bitcoin hodl stash more than before, and yet, oh, what's up, Mauricio? And yet the price is down. And I'm just being reminded of like the classic, oh yeah, as a Bitcoiner, you're like an idiot for 3 years and then you're a genius for one. And I'm like, dude, all the signs are playing out exactly like that right now. But anyways, should we keep it moving?
Yeah, absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, we got the one, the only Mauricio from LEDN in the house today. LEDN had a huge announcement. I want to take advantage of the fact that Mauricio is here to talk about that announcement. Of course, I consider him as a friend as well. And I mean, Mauricio, I would say you're more Venezuelan than I am. I'm like a fake Venezuelan because like I grew up in Miami, but my parents are from Venezuela. I speak Spanish, Venezuelan Spanish. So
yeah, bro.
Yeah, brothers.
No, man.
Another thing. I found out that Mauricio and I went to the same high school. Crazy. Mauricio, how you doing, bro?
I'm good, man. I'm really good. You know, in the context of everything that's happening in Venezuela, which is unfortunate. You know, the market. I mean, there's a lot of things happening, and some of them are a bit contradictory. Like, I'm feeling good about the market and where we are in terms of Bitcoin price. Of course, I'm feeling devastated about what happened in Venezuela. We can get into that if you want. You know, what it means for the country, or what I think it means for the country anyway. But listen, it's been a great summer. I'm healthy. I'm happy to be here, and I think I'm feeling very blessed that we got the opportunity to build in this space and to hang out with people like yourself and the great people that are here. And also, we got Bitcoin Twitter back, which is pretty awesome.
It's so crazy. Like, they just changed this little tiny thing in the back end, and all of a sudden Bitcoin Twitter is back.
Right? No, dude. CERN shut down and Bitcoin Twitter came back. That's the real signal.
I didn't say that. Opti said that. But I do want to touch on that, Mauricio, because I think it is incredibly important to talk about. And I have family in Venezuela as well. Guys, there was a horrific earthquake that happened in Venezuela, and unfortunately, a lot of people lost their lives. On my side, you know, thankfully, none of my family, you know, was affected, but one of our team members, he's based in Venezuela, and unfortunately, he got affected a little bit. So Mauricio, could you talk a little bit about it? What do you think it means for the country? Because it was quite sad. The images that were coming out of there were horrific.
Yeah, I mean, it was a disaster. It was a double earthquake that hit La Guaira, which is north of Caracas, the coastal zone. It has Venezuela's main port, and it has a lot of people because it's the biggest suburb out of Caracas, which is the capital. Funny enough, I worked in La Guaira for a couple of years, 2011, 2012, and I'm very familiar with the area. I stayed in one of those buildings for 2 years while I was there. And anyway, to summarize what happened, it was a very freak double earthquake, 7.2 and 7.5. So it was the two largest earthquake the country has ever seen, and they were 8 seconds apart. And so I don't want to get into the sort of geo reasons of sort of why it happened, but the fact remains that, you know, it was a horrible earthquake that affected a large part of the coast and collapsed. I think it was like thousands or hundreds or thousands of buildings came down and trapping people inside. Some were able to escape, some were trapped alive. There were rescue efforts sent by many different countries to try to dig out survivors, and they did so for the first week. Since then, obviously, a lot of the rescue teams have now left because it's no longer an emergency rescue situation, and now you're going into the rebuilding mode. By the way, huge kudos, love, and support for anybody that donated or ran campaigns. I know so many people were trying to help in sending Bitcoin. I myself donated to a few organizations that were accepting Bitcoin, and it was great to see the community come together to help. I think where the country is now, the earthquake once again exposed the complete lack of, or just complete I don't know what the right word is, but the uselessness of the regime, of the government, right?
Absolutely.
Like there was no help, there was no support. All the support that came in was foreign. The locals did nothing. It took 1 week for them to give a day of national grief, of duelo nacional. They made the announcement a week after. And so what's happened since is that the people have basically, and the people of La Guaira, which La Guaira was historically a stronghold for the regime, they're revolting. They're demanding change. It's been the Chavista regime has very little left, and they are under a lot of pressure right now. This week, I think it was Monday or Tuesday, Jorge Rodriguez, which is the president of the National Assembly, put out a statement saying that they're going to revamp the political institutions, including the electoral bodies, and a bunch of others, in order to, the way I read that document is they're laying the foundation for the eventual election that needs to happen in the country. And if nothing else, I hope that this earthquake is that tipping point where Venezuelan society said enough, and we get our election, we get our democracy, we come back to freedom, and the country's allowed to rebuild. But that's how I would, summarize the situation.
Yeah, and one of the things that my mom was sending me some of these pictures, Mauricio, just to kind of give you guys an example of what Mauricio was talking about. Some of the buildings that collapsed, we found out that the internal structure of some of these buildings were literally made of styrofoam. Just to kind of give you guys an idea, like it was horrible. And it illustrates exactly what Mauricio was talking about, the failure of this regime. And, the importance of we were talking about Trump earlier, what he did, taking out Maduro. And the Wall Street Journal dropped an amazing article the other day talking about Marco Rubio's involvement. I hope he gets elected, by the way. Marco Rubio's involvement in the country, again, this is a country that has been oppressed for 2 decades or close to that, I would say, at this point, and then you could say that in the beginning things were going well, but it reminds me of the Margaret Thatcher quote, right? Which is socialism is great until you run out of other people's money, and then just everything starts to, not do so well. So, I'm optimistic, Mauricio, and that was a very good point. I hope this is the wake up call, and also to our Cuban friends as well. You're seeing news is coming out where essentially the country's infrastructure is just totally failing, where there's blackouts across the entire country, and I think that highlights the dangers of collectivism. Right. So I'm very optimistic about the future of Venezuela. I'm very optimistic about the future of Cuba as well. And Marco Rubio 2028, man, that's how I'm looking at it. Maybe I'm selfish as a South Floridian and someone who has a Venezuelan background, but I think he's been doing a lot of good for the country. And shout out to the Trump administration for doing what he did with Maduro. Mauricio, I want to take advantage of the fact that you're here, and I want to talk about a recent announcement that LEDN made, absolutely huge, and I want to frame it with this as well. So, guys, what a lot of people have to understand is most of the world does not have disposable income. Most of the world before Tether, before USDT, didn't even have access to dollars. So you don't understand how much of a game changer stable coins have been for the global South, specifically Venezuela as well. And the numbers are crazy. Like essentially the country has become dollarized in a way. And do you think that's dollars through a traditional account? Absolutely not. It's digital dollars, right? So you guys made this huge announcement, Mauricio. Congratulations. The team over at LEDN is always building. On June 18, 2026, Bitcoin, gold, the stable coins the world runs on, built on 8 years of trust. And I'm just going to read some of this press release. Real wealth is built on hard assets. Bitcoin is the most powerful version of that idea our generation has produced. Gold, a $20 trillion asset class, has been the answer for millennia. Tether Gold is revolutionizing this by tokenizing gold, making ownership more divisible, mobile, and verifiably scarce, but many the digital plumbing to use alongside Bitcoin as a seamless tool for liquidity and lending has remained fragmented. Today, that changes. The standard that built LEDN is now applied to gold, backed by an 8-year perfect track record of protecting client assets since 2018. We are uniting these premier stores of value, Bitcoin and gold, with the stable coins the world run on, including expanded support for USDT and USAT. We are providing the working capital and digital dollar tools you need to manage your wealth without ever having to sell it. Now live on LEDN. Hold for long-term Bitcoin and the Tether Gold in your LEDN transaction accounts, total portfolio control, trade across more integrated pairs, flexible loan rails, receive and repay loans, and USD. This is huge, this part, Mauricio.
Yes.
This is huge. Again, if you're, and you guys initiate loans for people in Venezuela, Mauricio. So this is enormous, right? The fact that people can pay back their loans in using a stable coin like USDT is an absolute game changer. Am I wrong to say that?
No, I think you're absolutely right. I think this was one of the, more impactful announcements that has kind of gotten in. I think most people are reading the gold part, but they're not necessarily. I'm not sure how many people have caught on to the fact that the LEDN now supports more uses for USDT. So in the past, you couldn't repay your loan with USDT. Now you can. We would disperse the loans in USDC previously. Now you can choose between USDC, USDT, or if you're in America, USAT, which is the US Genius Act compliant equivalent of USDT, if you would. And the obviously the big one is gold, and I can get into sort of the thinking around it and why. But I think at the end of the day, one of the things that I'm really excited about is, of course, as a Venezuelan, I was one of the first believers in stablecoins when they came out. I think there were some parts of the Bitcoin community that were a little bit skeptical. And I remember an interview I did with Marty way back when we started. The first stablecoin we supported disbursements on was DAI. I don't know if you recall DAI. But DAI was the stablecoin that when they first came out, they were doing a big push in LATAM, and many people in LATAM were discovering stablecoins through DAI. And so they were asking us to disperse the loans in DAI. And the reasons for stablecoin, the reason stablecoin adoption has exploded in these types of countries, and if you look at the type of countries where stablecoin adoption is exploding, it's typically countries that lack property rights. Okay, these are people that don't trust their institutions. You don't trust the police. You don't trust your banks. You don't trust your vaults. You really don't trust anybody in that environment. And so, you know, what you're left with, if you're living in a situation where, like where we were in Venezuela, where you can't hold dollars in your bank, all the banks and all the vaults and financial services are regime controlled, and it's really dangerous, or it's a big liability if you get caught with cash, like US dollar cash, because it's illegal to buy it if not from a bank or a regime approved entity. If you get caught with that and you don't have a receipt of showing that you purchased it from the regime itself, that could get confiscated. And there's many cases of property getting expropriated, even if it's not cash or dollars. They take your homes, they take your cars. And so if you look at what stablecoins have done, stablecoins have put dollars in the strongest reserves possible, US treasuries, and they've minted a token that we can now use across the world as a dollar. As a result of that, what does that do? That allows a person as a Venezuelan to hold a dollar safely in a digital wallet. You don't have to put it in a local bank. You don't have to, stuff it under your mattress. You don't have to hide it under your seat if you're driving somewhere because you're afraid you're going to get caught with the cash. So it makes it, and on top of that, you can now make transactions and send it worldwide without having to get the permission from a regime-approved bank. And you can access financial institutions worldwide, centralized or decentralized. So if you look at who has been the sort of role model in terms of bringing the stable coins to the countries that need it the most, undoubtedly that's Tether. And Tether has done this, and people have trusted Tether over the last decade or so to store hundreds of billions of dollars of treasuries and give you a token in exchange for that. And they've done really, really well. The product, I would argue, is more transparent than most central banks across the world. They give you proof of reserves quarterly. And what Tether has done now with XAUT is they're applying the exact same principle to physical gold. So they're buying real physical gold. They're bringing it to their vaults in Switzerland. They're storing it. They're minting a token for each vault, for each bar of gold that they have. And they give you the same proof of reserves by BDO every quarter. And what this does, I think this is going to do the same to gold that it did to stablecoins, because historically, anybody here listening that stores gold or has physical gold, there's a limit to the physical gold you can comfortably store at home. Most people that hold gold or precious metals in size already have to go and trust the vault. They already have to trust a third party to keep that thing safe. And most often, those vaults don't give you any paper or document that you can get any utility out of. If you want to transfer that gold or send it to somebody, it's a pain. You have to go to the vault, transport it. If you want to sell it, they have to prove it for purity. It's a process. When you're moving physical gold in size, there's a lot of friction. And again, for the same reasons, if you're Venezuelan and you want to buy gold, what are you going to do? Store it in the bank that belongs to the regime? Put it in your mattress, or take it, or take it somewhere when you want to keep it safe and potentially risk getting that thing flagged and taken. Many people, you don't have to take it from me. There's many stories of people getting gold confiscated when they're exiting Venezuela through the Colombian border. It's a common thing. And so turning it into a digital instrument like they did with stablecoins, I think is going to amplify its usability. It's going to amplify its versatility. It's going to make it move faster. It allows you to access financial services, use it like you would use your Bitcoin in many cases to borrow or do other things. And so what I think this does is it makes physical gold a lot more available and a lot more usable in a similar way that stablecoins did to physical papered US dollars.
Absolutely. I completely agree with you. And I want to emphasize how much of a game changer this is, because like you guys have to understand, if you live in a developed country, you have privilege that you might not be even privy to, right? The fact that you can use Zelle, the fact that you can use Cash App, the fact that you can trust a financial institution, or let's say you're getting exposure to gold, as Mauricio said, most people that are buying gold are not buying the physical form of gold, right?
Correct.
So there needs to be some type of stable financial system and stable regime where you trust that that broker that you buy that, you know, that gold from, number one, actually has the gold. There's questions there, but I'm not going to go there. And number two, the government isn't going to confiscate it, right? So this is a complete game changer. I completely agree with you, Mauricio. And again, I'm so bullish on this specifically for the global South. And what I'm seeing when I read that press release, Mauricio, the biggest game changer for me, again, just thinking about Venezuela, is now people have the ability to pay off their loans in Tether. And that removes so much friction. I can't even imagine. So that's a huge win. That's a big game changer. Yeah, man, this is awesome. You guys keep building. Proof of reserves. And the feature that Mauricio saw this when he came on the show earlier. Basically, the way that I've gotten to know, and Mauricio's been my emotional support process throughout all of this, is like actually using the product and going through the first going and experiencing the product over a period of time. And I remember when we had the drop earlier this year, it was the first time that I used the auto top up feature, you know, because I'm a paranoid Bitcoiner. So like, you know, like I'll keep my LTV like under like 30 or 40% just because I don't want to even find myself in that situation. I remember when we had the drop, I used the auto top up feature for the first time. And essentially the TLDR is this, guys. You send your Bitcoin, and now it's, you know, now it's gold, I'm assuming, as well, right?
Yes,
and you send your Bitcoin to your LEDN account, and essentially you can withdraw from that account, but you could also leave your Bitcoin on that account. And if there's volatility where your LTV gets to a point where, you know, you have to put more collateral, the LEDN platform automatically moves. You have to enable it, of course. It automatically moves your Bitcoin from that transaction account to collateralize your loan. So you can go camping, you know, you can go on a cruise, and you don't have to worry about the short-term volatility of Bitcoin. And again, you can withdraw from this transaction account, and you can have your Bitcoin back in self-custody, you know, once the Bitcoin price recovers. But I learned I learned this via experience and just paranoia. So that feature is fantastic. I can't emphasize this enough. I was very giddy, and I was texting Mauricio, and I was like, dude, this is so awesome, and all this stuff. Yeah, man, it was great.
No, thanks, man. And that's exactly what we built it for. And I'm happy to share that not a single client with auto top-up enabled and a sufficient Bitcoin balance on their accounts has been liquidated at LEDN. So the product is battle tested now through a few downturns, and it's worked exactly as designed. Man, it was funny. If there's tweets of people saying auto top-up is great, I had people reaching out to me saying, "Wow, does this mean it worked?" Because they were sending me the notification email. I was like, "Yes, that means they got topped up." And so just to kind of recap how it works, at LEDN, when your loan opens, it opens at a 50% loan to value. And as price drops, that LTV, that loan to value ratio, goes higher. And ultimately, if the loan to value ratio ever reaches 80%, that is when you would experience a liquidation. Importantly, auto top up kicks in well before. Auto top up would kick in when your LTV reaches 70% and automatically brings enough Bitcoin from your transaction account to bring the loan back to 65% LTV. And so what that does is that it ensures that as the price keeps dropping and there's enough Bitcoin in your account, your collateral balance keeps getting topped up such that your LTV remains always under 70% as long as there's a balance in the account, and you can keep topping it up. And obviously, the inverse is also true. When your loan, when Bitcoin price recovers, your loan LTV starts going down again. And when the LTV goes below 30%, you can withdraw up to 40% for clients. And then our private wealth clients can withdraw when the LTV drops below 40%. So, if the LTV rises, you need to send more Bitcoin to top it up. If the LTV drops because of the price move increase or the Bitcoin price increases, you can then call back some of that excess collateral. And the idea here is that you don't have to worry about whether there's a momentary dip at 3 a.m. while you're asleep, the system will pick it up, know that you've pre-authorized it, and respond on your behalf. This happens, and this works for either extended trips. Like many clients go away and they don't take their hardware wallets with them, so they want to have an action plan while they're away. And it also works as a backup in terms of a sudden overnight news crash or new war starting, etc., where the price kind of moved down suddenly without anybody being ready for it, and then it worked just as well for that too. So yeah, that's I encourage anybody that is watching this and has a LEDN loan to check out Auto Top Up. It's a phenomenal feature, and everybody that's used it has been really, really happy with it. And yeah, it's helped a ton of people. So I encourage you to check it out.
Mauricio, there is one data point that really stuck out to me, and then I'm going to tell a story about Mauricio presenting in El Salvador at Plan B Forum, or he wore the Maduro hoodie. It was great. But the auto top up feature, anyone who had the auto top up feature on, I think you were telling me the data before, the amount that it was like very few people actually got margin called, the people that had that enabled. Is that correct? Could you go through like the data?
Yeah, nobody. There was one person who had it on and had a loan liquidated, a very small loan liquidated, but it's because they had enabled auto top up, but they hadn't left a Bitcoin balance in their transaction account. So there was nothing to send to the loan. There was just a bit of dust. And so the system sent it, but because it was such a small Bitcoin balance, it didn't really do much to the LTV. But every single person that has turned it on and left a balance in the account, none of those loans were liquidated. And that to me is obviously amazing, because nobody comes to LEDN looking for a liquidation, and we certainly don't like liquidating any loans. We work very hard for people to earn people's trust so they can come take a loan. The last thing we want to do is close it for whatever reason, right? And so we like seeing clients plan and protect their loans, and obviously our clients like protecting their loans because people come to us to not sell their Bitcoin, and so it's a win-win. I think it's a product that is built or was built thinking about the actual experience. Like I've had these loans. I mean, I've been using my own platform since the beginning, right? And so my family does, my brother, my parents, like everybody uses it. In my family, most people use LEDN. And so I care deeply about the experience. And obviously as a Bitcoiner, we know this thing is volatile, and we know Bitcoin likes to move oftentimes at moments where we're either traveling or perhaps not directly glued to Twitter or our screens. And so we wanted to create a solution for people that wanted to protect their loans and in a sort of asynchronous manner, right? Like, how can I keep my loan safe if I'm not always looking at the screen in a way that doesn't require me to send all this extra collateral to the loan? Because once you send that collateral to the loan, you have to wait for the thresholds in order to pull it back out. And so we built Auto Top Up because it gives you a lot more versatility, right? Let's just say, for instance, you're going away for a month, okay? And you don't know what's going to happen with price, but you have a healthy LTV, which you just want to be safe. Well, you can turn on Auto Top Up on that loan, park an extra Bitcoin on that account, go away. And when you come back, if the price is stable and nothing happened, you just pull your Bitcoin back out and turn it off. And so you're not necessarily, it's a lot more versatile for you. And it's just one more tool to keep your loan safe.
I absolutely. And I've used it as well. It's great. Trial by fire in terms of learning the product has been fantastic. I do want to address some of the comments here. So Andrew said, cool, but that's a lot of trust. You guys have proof of reserves. This is a reaction to the being able to pay back with Tether. Third Gear Polls said that's huge. Mauricio, enormous. And then I do want to, someone actually did mention the auto top feature. I've done 2 loans with LEDN now. Auto top did save me a couple times. Nice feature. And then of course we got always FUD because this is Bitcoin YouTube after all. But I do want to talk about the success story that I saw before your presentation. Usually me and Mauricio are very talkative. Maybe it's just because of where we're from. But I remember I was hanging out with Mauricio it was like the first or second row of Plan B forum, and I was just talking to him like normal, and Mauricio, he wasn't as talkative as normal, and I'm like, damn, does he not like me or something? And then I looked at the calendar and I realized he had a keynote. So in his mind, he was preparing for a keynote, and I was bugging him. But he goes on this keynote, absolutely crushes it. On the backstage of the keynote, it literally says, Bitcoin is like the king, pristine collateral, big ass words. Mauricio's wearing the Maluto hoodie. But the thing that stuck out to me is the fact that you showed a screenshot of a success story of a LEDN loan, which to me, that's the thing that stuck out to me the most, right? So it's someone who took out a loan with LEDN for a very long time. And of course, the dollar amount that they owe is continuing to increase. That's the whole point of a loan, right? But the amount of Bitcoin that they had to use as collateral, it literally followed the Bitcoin cycle. And towards the end, the amount of Bitcoin they had on collateral actually was lower than it ever was, even though the dollar value that they owed was higher, which to me was fascinating, right? And this is the awesome part about LEDN. And the thing that I've always told you guys when Mauricio has come on the show is you have to be responsible with this, right? Don't go and put 50% of your stack into a loan. That is literally the definition of irresponsible, right? So you have to use this tool responsibly, and it's a great tool, and I've used it myself at Simply to grow my business as well. This is a great tool for you to tap into the wealth of your Bitcoin without having to sell it, with the caveat of, guys, be responsible. Use auto top up. Don't go crazy. Don't put 100% of your stack into the loan. It's a very bad idea. Even Mauricio would tell you that as well.
No,
right?
don't do it, man. I want you to keep the Bitcoin. And we all know this thing is a volatile asset. So it's important that you plan. And in order to have a good experience, you just have to size it appropriately, right? Like if you're worried about topping up or a particular price, or if you're finding yourself watching the price too much, you probably took on too big of a loan for the Bitcoin position. So it is really important to size it and plan it, because at the end of the day, nobody wants a liquidation. You want to get to the other side, and you want to make sure that you can do or withstand some volatility, because history has shown us that this thing can be volatile. And the example that you highlight I've shared it in a few keynotes, and it's really an answer to the question, why are these loans getting so popular, or why do so many people continue to use these loans, or why is it growing so fast? And the answer in really short, and I would love to bring back the slide and kind of walk you through it next time we do this, but really it's just a person that took on a LEDN loan back in 2020 and managed it responsibly until today. And what the difference would have been if that person had instead decided to sell Bitcoin back in January 2020 instead of taking a loan. So you compare the two paths. You compare, okay, well, how much would my net worth be if I had just sold my Bitcoin and waited out? And how much would my net worth be if I had, instead of selling, taken a loan and assume all the interest and all the collateral management around that position up until today? And what you get when you fast forward through the 8 years that LEDN has been operating is that the person who took the loan did actually much better in terms of their net worth at the end, because the collateral appreciated by much more than the interest rate that kept accruing on the loan. And that's really at the gist of this, right? Is that, do you believe that Bitcoin is going to surpass the cost of that borrow? And do you have enough Bitcoin to manage that position? If the answer to those two things are yes, then financially speaking, you're better off borrowing than selling. And, again, anybody that's interested can, if you guys want to reach out, I'm happy to kind of walk you through how the model works and the math. But math is math. And that's why I love showing people with specific examples, like this is how, like quantifying how much better each option is. And we're not cherry picking the periods. Like you can try and use the same formula, but choose different price points and different periods. But long story short, over a long enough time frame since we've been doing this, the price of Bitcoin appreciates at a much higher pace than the interest rates, which is at the core of this. This is without even considering the tax benefits, right? Because in most jurisdictions, selling your Bitcoin is a taxable event. So you'd have to sell more than half to get half in usable cash. as opposed to loans, which are not a taxable event in most jurisdictions. You don't have to use that. In fact, in some jurisdictions, you can deduct the interest cost from your other investment income, which makes it a really tax efficient tool, which is why so many wealthy people use that structure with different assets, whether it's Bitcoin, properties, equities. Lots of people borrow against it because it's just an efficient way of keeping hard assets and borrowing, debased fiat or debasing fiat.
Absolutely. And another thing too, and I want to be conscious of your time, Mauricio, because I know you said you had to drop around this time, but one of the things I want to point out is the fact that LEDN has never lost any of their clients' money for as long as you guys have been operating. That's in stark contrast with other platforms that essentially blew up at one point or the other. So could you talk a little bit about that? Because I think, again, the key word here is you have to be responsible. It's a little bit like self-custody, right? So, if you're not putting 50% of your stack in there, you're putting wealth is relative, right? It's all relative to where you are in your journey, in your financial journey. If you are responsible, it's not like you guys are going to lose the money, right?
Listen, it's funny because it's unfortunate that the events of the previous lenders went down the way they did, because the reality is that lending you $1 and keeping Bitcoin in custody is actually a pretty simple operation if you do it right? Like lending you $1 and keeping Bitcoin in qualified custody is a pretty simple transaction that would incur very low risk if you structure it properly. Where you can start getting into trouble is if you start doing things with that collateral, or if you start offering other financial services that are much higher in risk profile. So for example, in the previous iteration of lenders where you have BlockFi and Celsius and others, a lot of these guys had, yes, Bitcoin and crypto-backed loans, but they also had yield accounts where they would take people's tokens and then lend those out to institutions to generate interest so they can pay yield to the depositors, the clients that were coming into deposit. And because we were at zero interest rate environment, that was a really hot product. In fact, most of the AUM in those platforms was in their yield products, not in their crypto-backed loans or Bitcoin-backed loans. What actually happened was that the biggest risk in those operations was that naked lending, because they were taking in deposits from people wanting to earn yield, and they were turning around and lending those assets to institutions who never posted collateral and offered very little information around what they were doing with that money. An example would be Three Arrows Capital, right? So a lot of these companies were taking in people's money or assets, lending them to these very recent companies with very few diligence points or data points that could be diligence. Like Three Arrows would give you a letter from Kyle. And there were companies with billions of dollars lent to Three Arrows on a letter from Kyle. And so what ended up happening was Three Arrows and a few other companies had issues. The people borrowing the assets from these lenders lost money. And so when the lenders called back the assets to fulfill the deposits with the withdrawal requests, there were no assets. And so they had to close down. And that brought down their Bitcoin-backed loans and their crypto-backed loans too, because they were in some cases also lending some of that collateral. So and also none of the companies that went under had proof of reserves, not a single one of them. And on the other hand, LEDN has had proof of reserves. We were the first lender to ever do them. And we never partook in any of these shady operations. So when all these guys went down, we were looking around and saying, wow, it's unbelievable that everybody was being so irresponsible. But the truth is, this model, this idea of collateralized lending can be done very responsibly. Like mortgages are older than you and me, right? And so are gold-backed loans and auto leases and God knows how many other asset-backed loan offerings out there. So it's not that was the problem. The problem was that they weren't telling you what was happening behind the scenes, and that many times they were lying and being fraudulent, right? Some of them got caught for fraud and are now in jail. But there's a plethora of other reasons. I would argue that when you're evaluating these services, you really want to look at the track record. How long have they been doing this? You really want to demand proof of reserves. And you want to read the legal agreement. You want to make sure you know what you're getting into. And try to get them on a call or try to send them the questions you need answered, right? Do your diligence. Don't trust, verify, right? Like, even if you hear me talking and you like what you're hearing, go ask other people that have used LEDN, right? Like, do your diligence. You're a Bitcoiner. As a Bitcoiner, you should be doing this.
Yeah, and another, I want to highlight other experiences too, because you know the first month that I started using LEDN, and Mauricio was walking me through this. Like I said, he's a friend, but also my emotional support on this. But I remember, Mauricio, are you good on time? I don't want to keep you.
I do have to drop after this, just to go somewhere else, and I apologize, man.
Okay,
but
all good, dude. Thank you so much for joining us on the show today, man. I really appreciate it, guys. Go check out LEDN. If you use the promo code, you get 0.25% off your first loan. Again, it's a great way to tap into the wealth of your Bitcoin without having to sell it. And again, huge announcement: you can now pay back your loan using USDT, which is fantastic. Mauricio, thank you so much for joining us on the show today. I appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. See ya. Bye.
All right, everybody. It's going to be a fantastic show. We still have tons to cover during the culture segment. Me and Opti are going to do a vibe check on where we are in the Bitcoin cycle. So you guys are going to want to stay tuned. We're going to be right back just after the quick break. I want to give a shout out to our partner, HIVE Digital Technologies. Fueled by clean energy across 3 continents, HIVE runs dual engines, Bitcoin mining and AI compute. Their AI platform is ranked #1 in the world for network performance, and it's doing something bigger than compute. It's accelerating human discovery, the science, the breakthroughs, pushing humanity further and faster. Listed on the NASDAQ with the ticker HIVE. Catch the latest buzz at HIVE Digital Tech on X or HIVEdigitaltech.com. You secured your Bitcoin, but did you secure your devices too? They're still broadcasting your location and digital footprint. GPS, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, cell, 5G, EMF, all of it is leaking. Escape Zone fixes that. Their Faraday bags block every signal your device emits, so you decide when you're detectable, not the grid. Built for Bitcoiners who know sovereignty isn't just your wallet. It's your phone, your hardware wallet, your keys, and your entire digital life. Go to escapezone.com/simply and use code SIMPLY for 10% off. That's escapezone.com/simply, code SIMPLY. I want to give a shout out to our partner, LEDN. Here's something most Bitcoin holders never figure out until it's too late. You're sitting on wealth you can't touch without selling. LEDN fixes that. Bitcoin-backed loans. You keep your stack, you get cash. And they just introduced their lowest rates ever. No complexity, no fine print. The larger the loan, the lower the rate. These new rates apply to all new loans, refinances, and renewals. You'll see all the rates up front before you apply. The new, lower rates come with LEDN's gold standard protection. Your Bitcoin remains custodied and is never lent out for interest. Perfect 8-year track record of keeping clients' assets safe. Auto top-ups, LTV alerts, and partial repayments to keep you in control. Repay whenever you want with 0 penalties or monthly payments. LEDN's perfect $10 billion track record through every market cycle in the last 8 years speaks for itself. Don't choose between a great rate and the safety of your Bitcoin. Get both at LEDN. If you ever thought, what happens to my Bitcoin if something happens to me? Or what happens if I lose my phone? You're not alone. For a lot of people, the biggest barrier to self-custody isn't buying Bitcoin. It's the fear of making a mistake. And that's why I like Bitkey and I recommend it to my friends and family. Bitkey is a Bitcoin wallet built for real life, not just for day one, but for everything that happens in between. Lost devices, upgrades, accidents, and long-term ownership. There's no seed phrase to write down and worry about losing, and no single point of failure that can lock you out of your Bitcoin forever. What really stands out about Bitkey is the peace of mind. Recovery is built in, inheritance is built in. It's a complete self-custody system built by the team behind Square and Cash App, designed to make holding your own Bitcoin simpler and safer. Take self-custody of your Bitcoin today using Bitkey. Go to bitkey.world and use promo code SIMPLY for 10% off your new Bitkey. That's bitkey.world, promo code SIMPLY. All right, quick vibe check. and then we're gonna wrap up today's show. Opti, how are you feeling about where we are in the cycle?
That's how I'm feeling right now. I'm hungry. On the price, you guys don't care about me. But yeah, my stomach hurts. I can't even think right now. Price act. Honestly, I did tweet. I was kind of posting, like bull posting, low key trolling, but I did tweet this morning. 2020 or 2017 bull run rerun just started. And the reason I tweeted that is I was looking at the chart today, and I was looking it on the monthly time frame, and I don't know, I was like, man, maybe what we're just seeing happen on the monthly, because it basically went down last month, it hit the 50-day moving average, and then it bounced back. So it went under the 50-day moving average for a little bit, and now we are above it. Or sorry, 50-month moving average. And I was looking back at old cycles, and I was like, man, is this setting up to be like the 2017 run? Because it almost looked identical there. Again, we've seen that the price dropped under the 50-month moving average, usually for like a little less than a month. It just kind of wicks down there. The only time it had a prolonged time under the 50-month moving average was during the FTX collapse. And also, I just saw this morning that apparently Senate is not going to pardon SBF. So I guess kind of a win. But anyways, I was like, man, does this look like the 2017 setup? And everyone out there, again, we always work on kind of memes and heuristics here, and one of them is Max Payne. And from what I'm seeing, and also, and another thing, if it is where I think it is during, like lining up with the 2017, or sorry, the 2015 bear market, then it looks to me as if the timeline got moved up about a month or so. Whereas when it dropped in 2015, it was like August was the final dump, and then it finally started ripping in October. Well, if this is the bottom, then we dropped in June. So that would be about 2 months ahead of schedule, at least compared to what we usually see in the 4-year cycle playing out. So if this is when it starts running, I'm totally okay with that. Though I did see NYDIG drop a report saying that, again, you know what Nico said in the past, if it goes 70%, then it's going to go to like 38K. I'm like, that's not going to happen. I'm convinced it's not going to happen. I'm feeling pretty good. You know, a little bit of volatility, a little bit of price action makes our lives that much easier and makes everything so much better here in Bitcoin land. So I'm kind of chilling. I'm doing good. So now for the bear post.
I don't have a bear. I don't have like my.
He capitulated, guys.
No.
He capitulated. We're going up.
I posted this on Nostr yesterday, guys. We're like 75% through the bear market. We have 3 months left. It's October, should be the bottom if the 4-year cycle is intact. The only question that remains is there going to be a final capitulation event? That's the only question that remains, right? So, you know, let's see what happens. Obviously, we're going to be paying attention to it, but the good news is that we're basically 75% through this bear market already. And then after that, it's party time, you know? So I'm excited about that. I think 2027 is going to be a fantastic year. I think we're going to be back above 100K. You guys know my stance since October of 2025. I've literally been extremely transparent. I said the cycle's over, 4-year cycle's intact, and wasn't exactly bullish about 2026. It took a little bit of time for Opti to come around.
I have still yet to capitulate.
Opti doesn't. It's in his name. Opti does not capitulate. It's literally why he's called.
It's really the 42 IQ. You know, we just double down. We just double down on everything.
So, you know, I'm excited. I'm excited about 2027. And I think that this is a very unique opportunity for you guys to stack cheap Bitcoin. So I would take advantage of it, ladies and gentlemen. And it's going to be fantastic. It's going to be a great time. I can't wait. This is where you pay your dues. This is where you earn your stripes, right? It's times like these. The good news is, you know, we're 75% through. And then the party should start back up again. And then I think you guys are going to have a great time 2027, 2028, 2029, especially if the 4-year cycle is intact, right? That's
3 years of pumping.
Yeah, of course. It's 3 years. It's 3 green, 1 red. That's how it works. It's always
Wow,
like
that didn't work out.
It worked last. Yeah, because it's like you can make the argument. You can no. Let's
2 green, 2 red.
No. Let's be clear here. So, was Bitcoin down on the yearly compared to the year before? Yes. However, did Bitcoin make an all-time high last year compared to the year before? It absolutely did. We reached an all-time high on the 3rd year of the cycle. We reached $126,000. That was the all-time high of Bitcoin. So the 3 green, 1 year, 1 red meme, I would say is still intact. I would say where Opti is right is, yes, on 2025, if you take a year as a whole, it was a down year.
That's what that meme is
compared to the year before. But we did make an all-time high in 2025. So if the 4-year cycle is intact, 2027, 2028, and 2029 are going to be extremely bullish. And I'm looking forward to that. I think it's going to be fantastic. Anyway, before we wrap up today's show, I do want to give a shout out to our conference sponsor. Guys, the conference is coming up. It's right around the corner. You want to get your ticket quickly, ladies and gentlemen. It's literally next week. Mining Disrupt 2026, July 21st through the 23rd in Miami, Florida. Scan the QR code on your screen right now. Use promo code SimplyBitcoin. Again, promo code SimplyBitcoin to get 20% off. You're not going to want to miss Mining Disrupt 2026. It's the largest Bitcoin mining conference in the world. We hope to see you guys there. The entire Simply Bitcoin crew is going to be there. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fantastic. Hope to see you guys in the flesh. Guys, that was today's show. If you guys enjoyed it, you know what to do. Smash that like button. Consider subscribing. And we'll be back tomorrow for the last week of this week's episodes of Simply Bitcoin Live. Have fun, everybody. Take care. See you guys later. Peace out.
Today's episode was brought to you by BitcoinWell.com, a Bitcoin-only platform on a mission to enable financial independence.